we're all excited about some of the things that they're doing, and one of them is this phone. I got a sneak peek of it from Christian Heilman when we did the HTML5 DevConf class, and there's something about this phone that's really rather attractive. I mean, yes, it's basics, but it's kind of cool. And so I have no idea, but I'm not the only one that feels that way. So take it away, Diane, and thank you very much, Mozilla. And please come up and take the seats so that as many of you can get seated as possible.
Great. Thank you, Anne. All right. So yeah, real quickly, if people are still out in the other part, if they could sort of keep it down, especially when we start the presentation, that will help everybody hear it better. And then, like Anne said, please feel free to come in and be cozy and snuggly. It's very snuggly in here. So we're super happy to have all of you here. So hopefully most of you are familiar with Mozilla. We are big supporters of JavaScript and HTML5 and the open web. It's pretty much what we're about. So tonight you're going to hear a lot more about where we're headed in the future with mobile from Nick. And briefly, I'll introduce myself. So I'm Diane Bisgeier, and I actually work on an initiative that's very developer and entrepreneur friendly at Mozilla. And it's not a product, but it's a program to support other people building products. So it's an accelerator program called WebFWD. And you can find out a ton about it on our website. It's just WebFWD.org. So we are a 4-month program. We don't take any equity from you. We don't charge you for it. It's totally a free service from Mozilla. And we give you lots of skills and tools and coaching and access to Mozillians so that you can take your app idea, your game idea, whatever it is, if it's open and it's good for the web, we want to help you. We want to support you. So that's really the whole point of the WebFWD program. So I run it along with a woman in Mountain View, Didam Ersos, and then there's also Tane de Lima, who's in the room somewhere, raising his beard over there. That's Tane. Today is on his second day with us. So we're here to answer any questions if you have any questions about WebFWD. Our next class application is due June 5th. So if you want to be a part of it or you know somebody else that's building a cool, say, HTML5 app or something that might really be useful for the phone that you're going to hear about, please encourage them to apply. The application's just on the website. So webfwd.org. So you can apply by June 5th, and or you can wait and just get to know us. And that's it. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Nick, who's going to share all about the very exciting phone that Anne alluded to. So without further ado, please welcome Nick Desaulniers.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for coming out tonight. I'm glad to see the huge audience. I'm surprised we could fit it, everyone. Yeah, there's still a couple of little spaces on the floor over here if anyone's still interested. Okay, well, hi everyone. My name is Nick Desaulniers. I don't actually work here, but due to a glitch in the payroll system, I continue to receive a paycheck. So anyways, about me, I am a software engineer. I work primarily with third parties, helping them out with their applications, getting them up and running in Firefox OS, answering technical questions that they may have about the platform, and looking into any platform issues that may arise from the development of their apps. I'm also a core contributor to our simulator. It's a Firefox add-on. Anyone can go and get it and download it. And I'm a contributor to Rust, of which I'm very proud of. And also, I'm a very lazy programmer. Is anyone else here a lazy programmer? Yes. So I adhere very closely to the DRY principle. Does anyone here know what the DRY principle is? Right, is don't repeat yourself, right? And so kind of what I first saw of Firefox OS is at a previous job, a really small company, there was 2 of us as web developers, an iOS developer and an Android developer. And as the web developers, we would maintain this back end and also a web front end, of which the iOS and Android clients spoke to as well. And to me, I saw this duplicated effort of redoing these front ends as like really, really silly. And when WebOS came out, I had really high hopes that we could have another player in the market where the web was first class. And it was really heartbreaking to see that project kind of not really go as far as I wish it did. So I have really high hopes for Firefox OS, and I'm guessing by showing up today, you all do too. So my plan tonight is to talk a little bit just about app development. Sorry, probably move it a little closer.
Yeah, maybe just shout.
Sure.
Project. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, so what is Firefox OS? Firefox OS is an open source operating system, so there are tons of people contributing to it. It is free, and all the source code is open source for it, so anyone can contribute, whether they're paid Mozilla staff, Mozilla volunteers, people working at the handset carriers, or even chipset manufacturers will contribute patches to various like drivers, for instance. And so Firefox OS is looking to be there for the next billion people that are going to be connecting to the World Wide Web. Some of if you may have seen some of the specs from the developer preview devices, one of the target phones is roughly around a 1 gigahertz processor with 256 megabytes of RAM, of which half of that is being taken up by the operating system stack, and half of that by the entire radio stack. So, is anyone excited by that? Well, the thing is we're not actually targeting the US market. One of my favorite books is called Ender's Game. Has anyone ever read Ender's Game? Yeah. Right, so there's this, part of the story in Ender's Game, right, is there's this game, this like psychological game that they have the children in this academy play to try and gauge their mental ability, I guess. And in the game, a giant presents them 2 different drinks, and if they choose to either drink, both of them are poison, and the player dies, and that's it. And so the main character figures out that everyone else doesn't play the game, or if they play, they lose. And the main character finds out that he plays the game and he finds a way to beat it by not choosing either drink. He actually goes after the giant who presents the drink. And so I feel like that's a somewhat good analogy for the current United States market. Is it's very saturated currently with smartphone users, and we're not pursuing either of the drinks, right? We're going after a completely new market, and some of our user research has been really interesting to some of the markets that we're looking to target, where developers, they don't actually have Ethernet lines going to their house. Like if they have an internet connection, it's over a cellular network. And even then, cell phones are not subsidized like they are here in the United States. And a lot of users, they'll have these cell phones where they can actually accept multiple SIM cards in them, because it might be cheaper on one carrier to use the minutes from one when talking, but to send text messages on another. And we've even seen phones that hold 6 SIM cards, which I don't think I've ever seen that in the United States. So it's definitely very interesting. And so it'll be really awesome to have the next 2 billion people who, they may not have even seen Wikipedia yet. So to be there for them and to provide for them, help device manufacturers lower the cost of devices to get these people connected will be really interesting. So what is Firefox made of? So there's kind of these 3 layers within Firefox OS. The lowest level layer being Gonk. I hear all kinds of really strange things about what people think Gonk is, like, oh, it's just Android, or it's this, or it's that. And no, it's. Has anyone here ever run through Linux from scratch? So it's awesome. You should check it out. It's all about rolling your own Linux distro. It's very similar what the Gonk level is. When you remote shell into the phone, you can see we have ls and cd, but we don't have find. Right, so you can actually choose what programs you want to ship in your own Linux distribution. So it's just a Linux kernel. It does share device drivers from Android and also a bunch of dynamically linked libraries which have been compiled for ARM from the Android project. But that's pretty much all that Gonk is. From there, when Gonk boots into Gecko, which is our rendering engine that's used in Firefox Mobile. And when this particular build of Gecko boots, it boots into one web application, which is Gaia. And Gaia itself is 100% JavaScript. And that controls the home screen is itself an application, and it controls the other applications that you run on device. So that is what it's made of. Of course, love and open source as well. But, right, so what does it take to actually build an application? These are some of my personal recommendations, is that there's various ways to package your assets for an application, assets being your HTML, your CSS, and your JavaScript. So you're going to want to decide on your packaging model, which I'll go over the packaging models. Then you create a manifest, which is a really simple file that basically tells the operating system, like, this is the name of the application, this is where you should look for the icons, and then you need to serve the manifest with the correct MIME type. So that's kind of like the really short gist of creating an app. And so for the packaging models, there's two kind of broad categories, one having 3 subcategories. So typically an app is either hosted or packaged, and if it's packaged, it may be of type web, privileged, or certified. And so as far as when it comes to the 2 broader packaging models, mostly it comes down to the device APIs and whether or not you want to use those. And I'll get to those as well. And also, though, how you want to host your assets. So the thing with packaged apps is that all the device APIs they require your application to be packaged. And what happens with packaged apps is all the packaged apps, your code gets reviewed by reviewers in the marketplace, just like every add-on for Firefox is. And it's to make sure that your app doesn't do anything malicious for the user, because the user's going to install your app. And so, for instance, you don't want an app that's going to talk up all your anytime minutes, or start spamming everyone in your contact list with text messages, right? So that, if your app is going to be using those device APIs, your code is going to get reviewed. And as far as a packaged versus a hosted app, packaged apps are submitted to the marketplace just as a zip file, where all your assets are just zipped, and then you submit that in users art. Once it's reviewed by the marketplace, it'll be cryptographically signed, and then when users download it, the device checks the cert that the package was signed with to make sure it wasn't tampered with in transit. Okay, so one of the subcategories of the packaged apps was privileged, right? And so this is primarily for people who are looking to use the device-specific APIs, and it's subject to the content security policy. So the content security policy, if you haven't worked with it, which it's still very new, I believe, is somewhat restrictive in that it prevents you from doing things like having inline scripts in your JavaScript. And there's a few other things that it prevents. So I have a link there which kind of talks about it, but the whole purpose of it is to mitigate cross-site scripting, or the execution of code that you didn't actually write in your web page. So if you have this privileged application which is able to use the dialer or send text messages, for instance, you don't want to set yourself up for cross-site scripting where someone else can inject code and start texting people on behalf of your app, because then when that comes to light, then it looks like you're the one who's doing that. So there's just some more information that I provided as a link. And all this presentation will be available publicly for everyone to review afterwards. So on the other hand, you may not be interested in the device APIs, but you could still package your app as a type web. And this allows you to avoid having to host your application. So if you're looking to create a web application, but you don't know the first thing about hosting websites or anything like that, don't worry about it, right? As long as you don't require these backend services, which as well other companies will provide backends as a service that you pay for, but Mozilla will host the zip file that you submit. So if you're looking to just create a web application client side and not have to worry about any backend, then you can still package your app and submit it to Mozilla as that. And then hosted is the subcategory. I would say that this is probably most of the applications. If you have an existing mobile web application, you would probably end up submitting it as just a hosted app. And then finally, that third subcategory, most people will never have to worry about this, is certified, which when I show the device APIs, you'll see that the different APIs are listed by their packaging model, like what's the minimum packaging that they require. And so certified is typically like actually making a phone call. And other APIs that haven't fully stabilized yet are still certified, and in subsequent versions, the security model will be relaxed on them for applications to use. And so this page is the matrix of all the different APIs that you can have, and all of these we are working on standardizing, and 2 of the ones that have already been patched into WebKit thanks to Samsung are vibration and battery status. So these are the different APIs, and you can see each one over here in this column will have a different minimum app type required. So you can see all these certified ones. They may not be complete yet or solidified, so they're type certified. And here you can see either privileged or hosted apps, meaning even apps that aren't packaged at all could still use the FM radio permission.